Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dynasty After Dark. I'm your host, Calvin Timms. You can find me over on Twitter at TDC_Calvin, and my co-host is here with me today, Dale. Find him over on Twitter at Dynasty_Dale. How's it going, Dale?
It's going pretty good tonight. How are you?
Pretty good. We're doing this one a little bit early. Dale is a hot shot, and he's got tryouts or you practice? You got the job or the role, right?
We are starting rehearsal.
Rehearsal. Yeah. He's a big time playwright or something. I don't really understand what I'm talking about. So I'm probably butchering it, but he's going to be in a play.
Absolutely.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So, pretty much. Yeah.
So Dale's got that this week. So we're trying to get a couple of these recorded early. So Thank you guys for joining us today. We've been putting out the round 2 of the free agency roundup yesterday. And today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be fixing up your franchise, fixing your team for Dynasty. So we have one submission here today. We're going to kind of talk through it. And, I dropped this one on Dale quickly. So, everything's going to be more off the cuff, and that'll be more genuine that way. We're not really preparing the full depth strategy rebuild that we'd be doing, but this is what we'd be offering to you guys for free. Again, hit me up in my DMs. I've been talking about this lately, last couple of days. If you're interested in us giving you advice on your team, if you feel stuck with your team where, you don't know what you're doing this year or next year or what your long-term strategy is, that's where a third-party objective look at it can really help you, and you can formulate a strategy moving forward. So we will be breaking down a roster today, reading through its strengths and weaknesses by position, the team as a whole, and looking at its draft capital and all that stuff. And then we're going to be talking about what we would be suggesting to this owner as how to fix this team. So, this is what we'd be offering to you guys. Again, we can do it just privately through DMs. We can do it publicly like this, or however you guys want to do it. And I like doing this kind of content as well because it shows you a little bit more into the mindset that we use when we're looking at it. And that's where, again, hopefully the goal is in 5-10 years, you wouldn't even need someone like us to help you build your roster. We're going to prepare you guys to do that continuously long term, but we're going to have so much other content that you guys will keep coming back, right? So that's the goal, but we want to be fully transparent with it and show you our thought process behind it. So that's it. Dale, what are your thoughts on this whole thing?
I am also really excited to do this. I'm a lot newer to Dynasty than Calvin is, so I feel my strategies are a little bit different than his. So I'm very excited to kind of deep dive in this and see what we can help with this owner.
Right. And then the one thing too is like I feel most younger Dynasty players like they just lack long-term strategy.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's where
100%.
if you can think through your roster, not just this year, and it's great to win money and the title and everything, like that's great. But if you can think through this year, next year, the year after, and have a cohesive strategy, and you got to be able to rock and roll with it, right? Because fantasy is completely unpredictable, but you're 100%. Never going to be perfectly on par with your strategy, but you got to be able to absorb, who was the guy that the Henry Ruggs of the world, where he's you invest heavily in this guy, and then all of a sudden he's gone, and now, okay, what am I going to do? So that's where having a long-term strategy, it's tough, especially for people in our generation. It feels like we're one of the least prepared long-term generations alive, but we just you gotta start thinking that way, and it'll help you as you get older too, right? So this is a life learning strategy as well as for fantasy football. So that said, here's 100%. The roster that we're going to be working with today. We've got, and we're going to talk through this. So I encourage everybody to go over to YouTube and watch this on YouTube because you'll be able to see the roster on there. I'm going to read it off position by position, but it's a lot easier to digest when it's, on screen, probably visually for everybody.
Yep.
But the way we've kind of broken this out, so I put together this roster and I've labeled it with, color coded it essentially, and the color coding is how I rank these players as a dynasty cornerstone for this roster. Those are the gold stars at the very top there. The green players are solid players that should be reliable for the next couple of years at least. The orange players are just depth, where they could be good for your team, but they could also get in a year's time be completely worthless, right? You just kind of don't know at this point in time. The purple players are questionable. We don't know what they're going to do even now, let alone a year's time from now. So whether or not they're going to have any value whatsoever. And then the red players, they're replaceable. Like they're just kind of the roster cloggers that you can cut, with any draft picks that you have coming up, things like that. So that's the color scheme that I've kind of worked on for these breaking down these rosters. Hopefully, again, go on YouTube and watch it there. But that's kind of the thought process behind it. So jumping right into that with the quarterback position, this team has 5 quarterbacks: Justin Fields with the Bears, Desmond Ridder with Atlanta, Baker Mayfield now with Tampa Bay, Zach Wilson with the Jets, backing up Aaron Rodgers, and then Carson Wentz is still unsigned at this point in time. So in terms of how I rank these players, Justin Fields is the only cornerstone player here at quarterback. I have Baker Mayfield and Desmond Ridder as depth, so the mid-tier there. I think they're both going to be starters this year, but long-term, they're not going to have – there's a real possibility that next year both of these guys get replaced in the NFL draft. Yep. Zach Wilson, we have no idea what he's going to be able to do. Like they're obviously bringing in Aaron Rodgers at this point in time. It's pretty clear to everybody. So is Aaron Rodgers going to be able to fix Zach Wilson? That's the biggest question. We don't know at this point in time. You could mark him as replaceable, but I think you're just going to hold him at this point and just see what's going to happen in 2-3 years. We're going to have no idea. Look at Jordan Love. He sat behind Aaron Rodgers, and he's seen a resurgence in value. I think the same thing could happen for Zach Wilson, so you're going to be sitting on this guy. Carson Wentz hasn't signed with the team, so we just don't even know what he's going to be doing. So both these guys are questionable players. Getting into it, what do you think about these quarterbacks?
I don't hate them. I mean, I am very worried about their quarterback too. It's kind of going
Agreed.
off of what you said. I don't mind Ritter and Mayfield for this year, but I don't really see them being your long-term solution. I absolutely love Justin Fields, so
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
I would be very happy to have him for the next hopefully decade.
You're right. Right.
Hopefully. So other than that, like with Zach Wilson, I feel he has little to no fantasy or dynasty value at this point,
Right.
which is unfortunate with Aaron Rodgers coming in, which that could get interesting if Rodgers retires, but I think Zach Wilson will be at the end of his deal anyways. So
It's real quick on that. I just want to mention this. So with this roster construction specifically, right? Let's say Carson Wentz gets a backup job somewhere. So maybe he goes to the Geno Smith route or the Jameis Winston route and goes and be a backup somewhere. But Desmond Ridder and Baker Mayfield, specifically those two guys, we both agree that they're going to have a starter's job here in 2023.
Yep.
Both of them could lose the starter's job in 2023. But that said, there's a very real possibility that Aaron Rodgers comes over to the Jets. Let's say they win the Super Bowl. Let's say they don't win. Who cares? Doesn't matter. There's a chance that Aaron Rodgers would then decide to retire after this 1 year, right? And then maybe Zach Wilson is fixed at that point in time. Maybe not. We have no idea. But right when Ridder and Mayfield have the potential to be falling off, there is a chance, small chance at this point in time, that
possible.
Wilson could be back into relevance in 2023 or 2024, rather. And then you have Justin Fields and Zach Wilson as your 1 and 2 in a super flex, which isn't the worst.
No, it's not.
It's not great though. Don't get me wrong. Quarterback 2 for this team is atrocious.
Yeah, it is not good. I mean, maybe if I was them, I would maybe look to, maybe sell high on one of those guys, maybe mid-season, like Ridder or Mayfield, and see if you can capitalize on that and maybe get a draft pick. Maybe you can get, like another quarterback who is a solid starter potentially that might be a little bit older potentially, and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's something I would probably be looking to do, because it's looking pretty rough at quarterback.
Right. So then moving over to running back, and we'll get into some full team strategies here in a minute.
Mhm.
So definite weakness is going to be the quarterback position here. Justin Fields is
Yes.
great, but it's like hero quarterback right now where Fields is carrying both of them
Yes.
right now. Um,
Yes.
J.K. Dobbins with Baltimore, Brian Robinson with Washington, Gibson with Washington. Those two are actually a little interesting, especially after the McKissick cut this last week. Tyler Algier with
Mhm.
Atlanta. We'll see what they do. If they don't go Bijan, could be interesting.
Right.
Cam Akers with the Rams, Kenny Gainwell, Rashad Penny, Pierre Strong with New England, both Gainwell and Penny with Philly, Hassan Haskins with Tennessee, and then Craig Reynolds with Detroit. So as of right now for cornerstones, I still have J.K. Dobbins up here as a cornerstone. I do believe in the talent, even if it's not with Baltimore. I think that he's
Mhm.
young and he's going to be a solid player. Like we saw what he was able to do when he started getting healthy at the end of last year. He still has a lot of talent, so I like J.K. Dobbins quite a bit as a
Agreed.
cornerstone player. Brian Robinson, I think his job is pretty safe for the next couple of years, so I do have him as a cornerstone here. I don't think the talent is anything special, but I just think that he's going to be a safe player over the next couple of years.
Mhm.
I do have Antonio Gibson and Tyler Algier as solid players, that not right at the top tier, but we've seen what Gibson can do. He's very, very good player, but it seems like the coaching staff is out on him a little bit. But with Eric
Agreed.
Bieniemy coming in, it gets a little bit more interesting. Tyler Algier had a 1,000-yard season, so, I think that they're going to lean on him as long as they don't go Bijan Robinson at 8. Cam Akers, you could make the argument that he could be a solid player instead of a depth player, but it's a little bit of risk right there around him. Kenny Gainwell,
Mhm.
Rashad Penny, both of those guys, same thing. Pierre Strong behind, everyone's kind of worried about James Robinson with New England, but I'm not that worried. I think that he's just a camp body. We've seen Bill Belichick do this for years. Pierre Strong was drafted, I think, in the 3rd round last year, so there's
Mhm.
solid draft capital around him, and he did show out pretty well in the one game he started last year. So those guys are all depth players at this point in time. Hassan Haskins with Tennessee, if they move on from Derrick Henry, this guy could be something good. We just don't know at this point in time. And then Craig Reynolds is a cut guy. Like, he's just there for
Yeah.
depth at this point. So
Yep.
give me your breakdown here on the running back position.
It's for the running backs. Like they are pretty decent. Like they are pretty fairly young. Like they're all within their first probably. I mean, except I think Penny would probably be one of the older guys in this group.
Sure.
So I would probably. I mean, I'm not as high on Gibson as you are. I would maybe switch him for Akers probably.
Sure.
In those categories, and with Tyler Algier, I
It all
I feel
depends,
he was a
right? He was
product.
good at the end of the
Yes,
last year.
I feel he was a product of circumstance and being in an offense that was very inept and having Marcus Mariota and Ritter kind of struggling and
He
not
was
really having as many weapons.
I was gonna say he was
So
actually better without
personally,
without Mariota. He was better with Ritter.
right, right. So yeah, and I agree with that. But I think he was a product of circumstance compared to
Possibly.
as much talent as much talent.
I
So,
actually think he was pretty
I
talented, though. To be fair,
yeah,
I
fair.
liked him a
So,
lot last year, but no, I do. There is a lot of risk around him, right? So I fully
yes,
get what you're saying,
100%,
though.
100%. So, I mean, I think overall with their running backs, they are solid. They're not anything special, anything great.
Hmm.
I would say probably on a scale of 1 to 10, probably I would say a solid 5.5. Like
Okay.
it's not anything
Youth is,
spectacular.
yeah, youth is
Yeah,
definitely strong
yeah,
here, right?
it has youth. It has youth, it has potential, which is great, which is fantastic in Dynasty, and that's what you want to kinda maybe sell high on these guys
Right.
to get some other pieces that might be more beneficial down the road.
Yeah, especially so this is a 2 running back league with 2 flex.
Mhm.
So, having this many guys is probably a little bit of a mistake. If you're watching on YouTube, this team actually rosters the exact same number of running backs as wide receivers, which is probably not great.
Not a good idea,
Um,
yeah.
um,
It's not a good idea.
but so yeah, selling some of these running backs is is probably the main thing.
Mhm.
If you can get some seconds for him, maybe that'd be great. But
Absolutely.
yeah, so who out of all these running backs, who would you want to keep the most long term, like over the next couple of
Um,
years? Because that's the biggest
I
thing,
would
right?
right. I would wanna keep JK,
Mm-hmm.
believe in the talent. I mean, I'm a Ohio State guy through and through,
Sure,
so I will always say JK all day. So
sure.
I would say him. I think Brian Robinson is safe, like you said.
Yep.
I would even
I
go with Cam
I was
Akers
gonna say Akers is the
personally.
one, and
Yes.
Gibson I
So
think is worth saving just because we've
yes,
seen what his
I agree.
potential is, and then the rest of the guys are all kind of
He
like,
definitely has a talent.
yeah, if you can sell the
Yeah,
other guys after a
or
good
kind of
game,
middling guys.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's one guy I would maybe be selling is Kenny Gainwell. Um, I think he's going to
Penny's the
be.
hot one right now.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, I would. Yeah, I would say either him. I would just say Penny or Gainwell in this situation
Sure,
because because of the situation. So,
or
I
both.
don't think
You can
either of
package them.
those two are. Yeah, or package them. And if you're able to package them and maybe get even a first for them, which I'm not sure
Seems
if you could
high,
or
but
not.
yeah, maybe like a high
Yeah, it
second,
does. It
maybe.
does. Yeah, or even a high second for it's for those guys. I would do that, and then you can get other youth and other talent coming.
Yeah, for sure. Pierre Strong, probably hold him for now and just see, because
Yep, yep,
if the
and
I
see what
know
happens
everybody
with
loves
Stevenson.
Ramondre, man, but dude fumbles
Yes, they
a
do.
ton, and it's really scary.
Hmm.
Hassan Haskins,
It's a
I'd
problem.
probably be selling him. He's a bigger dude though. Like
Hmm.
he could be the next Derrick Henry for this team if Mike Vrabel wants to lean on him that way, but
Hmm.
I don't think he's as good as Derrick Henry, obviously. But
No,
just something
no.
there to be aware of. But yeah, youth is definitely the strength here at running back. No
Yep.
studs, but there's guys like Cam Akers, man. If they can get back to it, could be very, very good.
Yeah, and solid.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, wide receiver here. I think this is where it's a little bit more interesting. Godwin, Debo, Jamison Williams, DJ Chark, Alec Pierce, Paris Campbell, Darius Slayton. Unfortunate there, those guys are on the same team.
Yeah.
Diami Brown, James Washington. What could have been, man? I wanted to see that guy, and he got injured and just didn't even get to play last year.
Yeah.
Samore
Unfortunately.
Torre with Green Bay. So again, not so. This is a 3 wide receiver. Don't love the
Hmm.
depth there at wide receiver.
No. 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 I
Some
don't either.
good players at the top like Debo, Godwin, Jameson. If he can develop that way, could be very, very good. DJ Chark, I marked him as Carolina, but we have no idea where he's at right now.
Hmm.
That was before the Thielen signing, so maybe they don't bring him in, but we're waiting now to see where he lands. Alec Pierce is low key kind of interesting with Indy.
Interesting. Yeah.
He's going to be with a rookie quarterback or Gardner Minshew, but man, I think he was very underrated last year. Like he was pretty good, man. Especially without Paris Campbell here now. He's
Yeah.
the 2.
Well, I think the big thing is that they have a rookie quarterback coming in, so
Yeah.
I'm a little off on that, but I do hear that point, and
Yeah.
I think he's I think with him having another year to develop, and being that 2 under, well, like, I guess 2B under Pittman, because I think Pittman's a 2 myself, but that's beside the
Yeah,
point.
right.
But,
I'm with you there.
so
No, I think with again, we talked about it with the free agency roundup, but I think Gardner Minshew plays a decent amount of the year. Alec Pierce and Gardner Minshew
mhm.
would get along just fine.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, I think overall for the wide receivers, like there's not a lot of depth after the first 2 especially.
The
After
first
Godwin and
2?
Debo.
Oh,
Well,
you're
after Godwin,
yeah,
after
Jamison
Godwin and
Williams, we have to
Debo.
see, but he could
Yes,
be very,
yes,
very good, right?
he very well could
Guess who
be,
was
but
drafted to be?
yes, yes. So no, I agree with that. I guess it depends how you feel on him. I think a lot of people were higher on him last year than they are coming into this year,
Sure.
especially. So that's where that worries me a little bit.
Hmm.
So I mean for him, it's in this league, like there's 3 wide receivers and 2 flex, which you would probably be flexing um
Tight ends.
another one of your receivers.
Oh yeah,
Well,
yeah.
well,
One tight
and
end. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and
Yep.
a tight end. Yeah,
Yep.
and a tight end. So, I mean, you're probably going to be trying to potentially flex a wide receiver in this league, and it's
Hmm.
kind of
Yeah,
slim
you're
pickings at this point.
flexing DJ Chark, Alec Pierce, Paris Campbell. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
great. It's definitely not
Yeah,
great.
I'm not liking that.
Yeah, maybe DJ Chark could be good again. He was solid at the end of
In-
last year. Kind of
Interesting. Yeah,
kind of proved what I was hoping he'd prove in Detroit. Just didn't do it. He was injured so
yeah,
much last year. It kind of sucked.
yep.
So grade wise, what would you put at the wide receiver?
I would probably say it's about the same as the running backs. Like it's a solid group. There's just not a lot of depth,
Yeah,
which I
I'm
think
with
is
you.
the problem there. So I mean, it's I mean, I think for this roster as a whole, I think they're good, but they're kind of in this middle point.
Right.
Like they're like kind of rummaging in the. I don't want to say mediocre because I feel that's rude, but like they're it's a very mid roster.
Yeah, that's
It's
fair.
it's
No,
it's
that's
right in the
definitely fair.
middle.
Definitely fair. And then tight end position. So you got Cole Kmet with Chicago,
Mm,
George Kittle with San
yep.
Francisco, Greg Dulcich with Denver, Irv Smith, unknown landing spot yet. Hopefully he goes somewhere. There's a lot of tight ends that still haven't signed in free agency yet, so
Yeah,
something to watch
a
there.
lot.
Jonnu with Atlanta and Kylan Granson with Indy. So ranking wise, I do have Cole Kmet and George Kittle as those cornerstone pieces
Mm,
for Dynasty.
yep,
Greg Dulcich is a solid player. I think that there's a lot. He could become a cornerstone player really quickly. I want to see what he does with Russ
absolutely.
and Sean Payton there because they're trying to move both Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. So
Mhm.
it's a very real possibility that Greg Dulcich just takes a massive uptick for fantasy football. Irv Smith, he's questionable. He doesn't have a landing spot right now, so it's hard
Mhm.
to predict anything for him. But then I think Jonnu and Kylan Granson are cuttable at this point in time. I know everyone's worried, oh, Jonnu Smith, who wasn't able to do anything with the Patriots or the Titans for most of his career, is going
Right.
to come and take all of Kyle Pitts' targets away. It's like he's not going to do anything, man. Like,
He is not gonna take any targets from
yeah,
Kyle
at this
Pitts
point, it's just time.
at
It's
all.
time to just admit that he's not the guy, right? So,
No, he's not.
um, it is 2 point tight end premium. So,
Mhm.
some guys there they're not the worst group of players there. You got one
No.
George Kittle who's one of the top tight ends.
Yep.
Cole
Top
Kmet
3 tight end. Yep.
has the potential. We saw a little bit more of
Yes.
that the end of
Yes.
last year, and
Yes.
then
I
Greg
agree.
Dulcich. So, what do you think about these tight ends? They're good but
Yeah,
not deep.
yeah, I mean, for having to start one tight end, I'm really excited with this group, and
Hmm.
then being able to flex one out.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
I honestly, I honestly
Or
feel that you
two,
can flex.
right? Like
Yeah,
Kmet
or
and
even
Dulcich.
2. Exactly. So, I feel very good about the tight ends and where they're at.
Sure.
You know, um, you know, um, and just going off what you said, like I feel that Dulcich could be a cornerstone really quickly.
Hmm.
And being someone that has a lot of value in a very murky tight end landscape.
Yep. No, I'm with you there. So, what grade are you giving the tight end position here?
I would say out of their whole roster that the tight end is the best is the best position wise. So
Sure.
I would say they're a solid like 7 out of 10. So I would say like a
I'd even
solid
say
like
like an 8 personally, but
yeah
because it's
yeah
hard.
yeah
Yeah, tight ends
yes it
suck,
is
right?
it
So
is
it's
it
very
is
hard to
very
get
hard to get good tight
multiple of
ends.
them. So to have
Yes
three
yes
guys that have the potential, I think that is a good
it's
advantage
great
for
it's
for 2 point.
fantastic
But
yes
um,
yeah no I agree with that.
no, so not the best, but could be worse. Could be worse.
Very. I mean, I can really see like those three guys being maybe like tight end ones at the end of the year.
Yeah, definitely.
And stuff like that. So
Yep.
that's very very valuable in this type of form.
Yep. And then the draft picks. So no first,
Mhm.
3 seconds, no third. So we got the 2-7, 2-8, 2-9, the 4-1, 4-3, and the 5-3 here. And then he's got all of the 2024 picks from first,
Mhm.
second, third, fourth, and fifth. So with those picks, I'm just looking at roughly who you'd be targeting. So 2-7 is what the 19th player. So you're looking at like
Mhm.
a Darnell Washington, which actually would
Mhm.
not be terrible with this roster.
No, that would be fantastic.
You're talking about like a Marvin Mims, Cedric Tillman, probably Xavier Hutchinson, someone in that range there. And it's all the nice
Mi-
thing is there are 3 picks in a row, so you kind of control that a
uh-huh.
little bit.
Yeah,
Maybe a Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker on
that's
this
what I
roster would be
that's
huge.
that's what I was about to say. Like I think if you can get Hooker at I mean if he does slip to you,
Sure.
after 2-6, like, I would just
Yeah.
pick him at 2-7, and then you could pick whoever you want
Right.
at
Right.
that point. I think that would be monumental,
Hmm.
and that could add a lot of value there. I'm not saying Hendon Hooker is going to be a starter, anytime soon, but
No, but I
I
mean,
feel
it
that
gives you
gives you
depth, potential.
that absolutely, absolutely, like, that gives you a much, much needed depth.
So then the other thing would be any of the running backs. So, like Israel, Abanaconda. Again,
Yep,
we'll see
yep,
landing spot there, but I love that with those guys. Doesn't
mhm,
really need running back on this team though, but maybe if you were able to package some of those guys together and get like a 2-1 or something like that for Gainwell and Penny, maybe that gets a little bit
mhm,
more interesting there. Um, but yeah, I think a Bonaconda, maybe a Zach Evans or a Sean Tucker, one of those guys falls there. It's a real
yeah,
possibility. Tajay Spears, some of these guys. But yeah, mostly I'd probably be looking to target Hendon Hooker.
yes,
Any of the wide receivers that are available, Josh
mhm,
Downs, Xavier Hutchinson, Tillman, Flowers, any of those guys that
Flowers
fall,
even, yeah, yep,
Marvin Mims.
yep,
And then maybe
100%.
adding like a Darnell Washington. So definitely could be worse with the draft picks, but having no first definitely hurts this roster. But
It does.
having 3 seconds
I
does
mean,
make up for it a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah, it does help, and, I mean, I would definitely go after, like, wide receiver depth with those picks,
Yeah. Building long term.
personally.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going long term, and I feel you can get more value out of a second round, wide receiver than you can a second round running back, in my
Sure.
opinion.
Most
So
of the time.
most likely. So I've seen in years past, like I saw like some like wide receivers that had really good draft capital go late. Like for instance, like well in this one league I had, it was a few years ago. Like I think Jalen Waddle went like 2-4 or something like that. So like if you can get like a really good PPR guy that's in a good spot,
Yep.
like a Flowers or a Mims or a Hutchinson, for instance, could be
Hmm.
really, really interesting and really, really good for you.
All right. So here's the question then. So where, how does this roster rank up? So you got like full rebuild, partial retooling, right? Competitor if things break right, or in the mix, full on. You're going for the
Right.
title. Like, how would you rank this roster?
I would say it's a partial rebuild. I don't think it's a full
Retooling.
real. Yeah, I feel it's a retool. So you know, I mean, I think there's a lot of good pieces that they have that they should keep.
Okay.
By all means, but I feel there are some definite holes that they need to fill,
So are
like
you
especially like
shooting?
in the wide receiver room, in my opinion.
So are you shooting for 2024 as being the season that we need to be competitive? That's what I would probably be doing with this
Yes.
one. And I
Yes,
do know this is
100%.
it's hard because I know that this one is a high dollar buy-in. So
Yeah, yep,
every year you're not
yep.
competitive does hurt
It
quite a
does.
bit.
It
Um,
it does hurt a lot, I agree.
but yeah, I think 2024 is probably what I'd be targeting. So here's the question.
Mhm,
So, obviously they've only got the picks for their team in 2024, no extras or anything like that. Um,
right.
who would you be moving? Like, is there any players you'd be moving and trying to get a 2024 first for at this point in time?
I think I would be trying to look towards trading, like, maybe, like, Debo. That's I mean,
Okay.
I think you can I think you can get a first for him. Um, and,
You
like, I would
hopefully
either
you can get
be
more
I
than a first. I think Debo,
yes, yes.
yeah,
Would go for more, I
sure.
agree. So, I mean, that's probably who I would start with is maybe trying to shop Debo a little bit to see if there's any interest from anybody,
Okay.
and then maybe you can get, like, even, like, a 23 first and another maybe mid wide receiver or something like
Sure.
that.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
I would maybe I would maybe start there.
I'm probably keeping
Like
all the tight ends. I'm not moving a tight end. Maybe Irv Smith if he signs somewhere good.
Yes. Yes.
Running backs,
So,
we already talked
it
about those guys a little bit. I don't think any of
yeah.
them are worth a future first, though, unfortunately. Like an Akers, but
I think Dobbins
but
potential
I don't think I want to
is
move Dobbins on his team.
no, no, I would not wanna move Dobbins at this point, no. Because like, after that, like, I don't feel you have as good value,
Right.
there. So, yeah, I mean, I think Akers would probably be an early second at this point, probably maybe. Maybe, like, you might get lucky with, like, a 2-4 or something, or, like a 2-2 potentially, but I don't think you'd get any more than that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, you're
you know,
probably you're barely getting a
I
second for Akers now, so, you know.
uh-huh. Yeah. So, yeah. So, y- y- like I would probably try to shop one of your higher end wide receivers right now,
Sure.
and see if you can maybe even pick up like another quarterback even, and have somebody that's going to be or that's going to start the whole year. It's
Okay.
compared to the guys that he has now,
Right.
where that could get really tricky. I'd maybe be trying for like a Jared Goff would be really good
Yeah, because here's the
personally.
thing, like, right, like if this team stinks, they have their own first, so they could always,
Hmm.
go and get like a Caleb Williams, and then you're
And
pairing
a
him with
Caleb
Justin
Williams. Yep,
Fields. But all right, so
agreed.
here's one thing I wanted to throw. This is the last thing we'll talk about, and
Yep.
then we'll wrap this thing up. But so essentially, we're agreeing that this isn't a retooling. The skill players and the quarterback are not the greatest. Wide receiver, it's a little bit more flashy at the top, kind of falls off
Yep.
pretty quickly. Running back, it's kind of not flashy at the top, but it's just solid kind of all the way
Yeah.
through, essentially.
Agreed. Yep.
More depth there. It's just not shiny, which is not necessarily a
Hmm.
bad thing. So,
No, it's not.
I'd probably give the running backs like a 7 just because of depth. There's going to be so many
Yep.
guys that get injured by week 10 and 11 that this roster does have quite a bit of depth there. But
Hmm.
we're both agreeing that it's kind of in a retooling, right? The quarterback definitely needs some
Yep.
tune up. Wide receiver definitely needs tune up in terms of elite players as well as depth down below it. So one of the questions that trade offer that they were positing, right, was Deebo Samuel and Justin Fields. And let me quickly just pull up what the actual trade was going to be. And we could talk through it. So it'd be sending Debo and Justin Fields, which is massive because we talked about Fields as
That
a
is.
cornerstone, right?
That is. Yes. Yes.
But this is the potential offer, right? So it'd be George Pickens as the player,
Mhm.
the 1-3, the 110, and then a 2024 first round pick, which would probably be late. So the 103, you could replace Fields with essentially a Stroud or an Anthony Richardson, more than
Mhm.
likely. I
Yeah,
mean, if you're getting Bijan at the
probably.
1-3, okay, you take that and you just sell him in 2 weeks' time.
Sell
Fine,
'em high,
whatever.
yeah. Yep.
But okay, you're getting a Stroud or a Richardson to replace Justin Fields. The 110, it could probably be a Jordan Addison, a Quentin Johnston, somebody like that, which
Mhm.
would not be terrible. You could even maybe get a Will Levis at that point in time, which isn't terrible value at that point. You're getting a George Pickens, which is um, a younger Debo essentially. He has a lot
Yeah.
of potential, but then
Yep.
also a late 2024 first. What do you think about that offer? Would you consider that for this team? I think it should
I
be
feel that
on the table.
yes, I feel that's very tempting, I think my biggest concern is that if you do that, then I feel you are extending the rebuild.
Possibly,
In
definitely,
in in
definitely.
in my in it like, if you're just doing this, like, so, I'm not I mean, I do like rookie quarterbacks, and I feel there could be a lot of value in them, but I feel that, like, if you're running them out as your quarterback 1, I think that's a little risky, and that means that
Sure, but
you're probably gonna be in.
if you're not trying to
Yeah,
compete this year, right?
right.
Stroud,
Yep,
again, we're agreeing that 2024 is probably the target. Like
yep,
that's where you have an Anthony Richardson, a CJ Stroud. They don't
yeah,
do a ton as in their rookie year. They play well enough, whatever. Both of these guys we think are pretty safe for the NFL in terms of fantasy value and everything like that. So let's say now you're all of a sudden in year 2, you got to turn to a rookie regardless with this roster kind of, unless Ritter or Mayfield really stand out and they solidify themselves. And then you're going to like a Caleb Williams or something. I mean, in reality, selling Justin Fields helps you get a Caleb Williams next year for sure, and a
it does,
Debo,
it
right?
does, it does.
But that's the one thing there. But you're sitting on those guys for their rookie year, so that hopefully in year 2 you can take a little bit more of that step up. Again, I don't know if either one of those guys can add up to a Justin Fields potential,
Yeah,
but
yep.
it's an interesting offer. That's all.
It
I'm
is.
just curious what your
It is
thoughts are.
very interesting. It is interesting. I'm always the player that would rather have the the players and the picks sometimes because
Right.
I feel there's more concrete value in a player than there are the potential with the picks.
The
So
I was gonna
that's
say the one downside with that trade though, it does feel a little bit low for like you're selling Debo on a discount almost. Like
agreed.
three
Agreed.
firsts and Pickens is not a bad offer for those two players. But if Debo
No,
gets
it's
back to
not.
like top 5 wide receiver
Mhm.
value, like you're talking basically like
Yes.
2.5, 3 firsts just for Fields, and then 2 firsts for Debo, right? So
Right.
you're kind of losing out on potentially like a first round pick or for Debo here, but
Yeah. Yeah. So I definitely don't hate the offer, but I think I would be holding at this point because
sure. At least closer
I
to the actual draft for this league. I mean, doing it
yes,
now it's kind of
yes,
risky. If
yes,
like if
100%.
Ayuk gets moved, right, all of a sudden Kittle
It's a lot
Kittle
different.
and here's another question too. So
Samuel, yeah.
Kittle and Debo both would take a bump up, right, if Ayuk gets moved, which I
Absolutely.
could see him
Yes.
definitely getting moved on draft day.
Mhm.
He's like
I
the AJ
agree.
Browns of the world.
Mhm.
But here's another question: George Kittle, would you be trying to move him on this team, or would you be holding him? He's getting older. There, he's getting up there in a little bit
I
in
know.
years.
I mean, I would either move Debo or Kittle. I don't think I would
Sure,
move both,
Kittle's
but I would
29.
move one or the other. So, I mean, but it's the only thing is with the tight end premium, that makes Kittle a lot more,
Sure,
enticing, especially.
he
So,
finishes the tight end 3 in this league while being
which
terrible
is
for the
which
first
is
month
nuts.
of the league.
Which is insane. Yes.
Wild,
I agree.
wild.
It is wild. It is wild. So, I feel that position is very important, and, I mean, I do think he's gonna take a little bump down with having Trey Lance there. I think that's gonna be a little different.
Possibly, possibly.
I mean, I think he really flourished with Brock Purdy and Jimmy G being there, and not being the running quarterbacks that they were.
Fair enough.
So, I think it's I mean, I'm not worried about Debo's value. Well, I am only because he's very injury prone. Like it seems like he
Right.
gets injured once or twice a
Yeah, he
year
had the
pretty
one healthy
consistently.
year, and he was the tight end or the wide receiver too, right? So
Super yeah, yeah. So, I think I think personally I would probably be trading Debo over Kittle only because of the 2 point tight end premium.
fair enough. You could even sell them both, right? Like that, it
Yeah,
wouldn't be terrible,
honestly.
depending on what you get.
Honestly.
So,
Yeah.
last question, then
Yeah.
we'll wrap this one up. So, George Kittle, what are you selling him for? In a 2 point tight end premium, what are you selling him for? Like
I
a mid
mean,
first,
yeah. Yes. Yes.
probably one
That
first,
I
right? Like
yeah,
a late
yeah.
first and maybe an early second would get it done, or a
Mhm.
2024 second.
Something like that,
I don't know
yeah.
if I
So,
think if it
yeah,
was 2024 second, I'd want another like a third or something added onto that, just something a mid tier player like or a
just
low end
because,
player or
yeah.
something, just
Yep.
because there's the potential that could be the 212, and next year's draft class we haven't really evaluated much. 212,
Yeah,
there could be no
it could
good
be
players after 208. We have no idea.
right, right. So,
So
yeah, I mean, I think I'd rather have the mid first, personally.
right, right,
Is what I'd rather have. But, I mean, but I mean, but personally, like, if you wanna kinda retool and but it kinda all depends on what you like and what you want in your players. So, personally, so, I mean, but, it's for me, I would much rather have my tight ends secure and stuff like that and know I can depend on them because I I I know there's a lot more fluidity in the wide receiver field. Personally, I feel because, like, not every week these guys aren't gonna have, like, wide receiver 1 finishes,
right.
and
Yep.
stuff like that. Like, it's more likely that they're gonna have some, like, like, wide receiver 50, weeks, you know?
Hmm.
It's compared where tight end that you're probably gonna have a top 15 week most weeks,
Right. Yep.
and that's still gonna be pretty solid.
Yep. No, I'm with you there. So this is a brief, not full in-depth look at how we break down rosters for you guys when you're reaching out to us. But this is kind of the thought process we look into it. So first we go position by position, then we look at the strengths and weaknesses for each one, and finally we kind of look at where the team is, long-term strategy, when you should be targeting going for gold, right? And the competitiveness. And then, just how do we make that happen? What's the best way to do that? Who should we keep? Who should we move? Things like that. So again, if you're interested in that, hit us up on Twitter at TDC_Calvin, at Dynasty_Dale. We're happy to answer any questions all season long. You can hit us up on YouTube with the comments. Anywhere you're listening to the podcast, if you can, leave a like, comment, and subscription. We're going to be doing more of this content throughout the off season. But we got more mock drafts. Hopefully tomorrow we'll be back with a guest. We're recording this a little bit early, but I think Dale won't be able to record if it's on Wednesday, but Thursday we might be able to get Dale back in there as well. So we'll see. If not, Wednesday will just be a solo pod by me, but we'll see when our guests are available. So they are coming. Just want to let you guys know that. But till next time, thank you guys for joining us and have a good night.